Welcome to this Nexi talk about open banking. Market approach towards open banking has shifted from PSTN2 compliance and innovation in the payments landscape to open finance. Over the last years, banks and financial institutions' efforts have been focused on activities to comply with PSD2 obligations with only fewer players, like major banks or challenger players taking advantage of PSD2 APIs to launch new services, but still limited to the money management space like account aggregation. Now we see more players taking advantage of open banking with a broader scope of open banking projects and an increasing focus on payments and data like, for example, credit scoring. I would now like to introduce our two guests. Welcome to Dario Fioravanti from Experian, welcome, and to Gianluca Finistauri from Nexi Group.
Hi.
Gianluca, let me start by asking you the first question here. How do you see open banking evolve?
Open banking is changing rapidly. I would say the way it's changing, since it didn't deliver yet the full promise he made, volumes are picking up, but not yet at the level we would expect. The change is more about players trying to understand and striving to find their way through profitability in open banking. So what is changing is that players are moving from simple account aggregation or PFM to more, I would say, useful use cases. So credit scoring, for example. Payments is becoming already a mature market. So open banking payments is there all over. Other use cases that are indeed very important are the EID use cases. So everything around checking the identity of the customers or fulfilling the know your customer obligations is something very important. And I would say another kind of evolution is the evolution in quality of the API that the banks are offering. They started with APIs with some problems in the very beginning, in the very early stage of open banking. I would say now we're at the stage where APIs are mature and of a quite good quality all over Europe. So this is the kind of evolution that we are seeing today.
So how rapidly is the landscape in Europe changing for the time being?
I think very rapidly, and I think that not all countries are at the same speed, but I would say at least Italy and the country where Nexi is operating, we see a lot of volume pickup, new players, and some sort of consolidation also of big players on open banking. I would say another thing is that another trend that we are observing is that a lot of non-PSD2 API are raising, so not mandatory API. Banks already adopted the API technology, and now they're moving into creating their own APIs, cooperative among banks or just API of a bank, with which they can offer more services than the ones that PSD2 law and the PSD2 regulation can offer. So in Italy, for example, we have APIs about the control of the identity of the customer, I was saying before, but also about the ability to retrieve data with the consent of the customer, obviously, data of the customer in order to fulfill form or onboard on new services. And I would say this market is very rapidly changing.
So if we turn to Experian, Dario, where you come from, how do you see open banking data can help you and the banks in this open space?
Data represent always a great opportunity for banks, for financial institutions. When they come to me and they ask me, Dario, what has changed? I like to say nothing has ever changed because you're still trying to do the same thing that you were trying to do before. Basically, you're trying to score your customer, your prospect, you're trying to understand if they're eligible or not, if they're gonna take up what you're offering, and you need data to do that, right? You need technology, processes. So basically, what has changed is getting new opportunities like open banking. Open banking represents a big opportunity because it represents a new bucket of data, new data source that can be fueled right into the credit process, lending processes to accelerate what the bank is doing and to improve customer lives, because this is a double win for either the bank and the customer. The bank, because they're trying to refine their affordability calculation, income estimation, whatever they're trying to do for forever, and they get this new insight, actionable insight, that is quite useful and effective to understand, to better understand their customers and prospects. On the other hand, the customer is trying to get everything they want as fast as possible. We are Amazon children, right? So we want to get to the point as fast as possible. And in order to do that, you need to implement a seamless and flawless process, like instant lending, for example. And open banking is an enabler. So every data source that you gather from the current accounts of the customer gives the opportunity to the bank to have a multidimensional view of the customer, right? So they can understand. And this would be ideal for everybody. I want that my bank understand myself as a customer. I want that they predict what I'm gonna ask, why I'm on the market for something. I want that they understand my spending habits so that they are closer to me, right? And it's not just an institution that try to spoil me, right? So for me, this represents both benefits, either for the banks and the customers.
So you also see a huge potential in this, like Gianluca just told us about, in the European space?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Of course, there are compliance differences and habits, also cultural habits. Spain, for example, was, for what concerns to me and us as a company, was quite advanced, but they have a completely different way to interpret the open banking and the PSD2, right? In Italy, for example, I have different examples, different stories to tell that are quite interesting. But again, there is a specific way, that they have complied to the PSD2 regulation in order to gather this data, categorize the data, and fuel it into the models, right? So the opportunity is everywhere in Europe, and it can be quite effective for everybody.
Thank you. Turning to you, Gianluca.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me what other use cases banks and corporates can take advantage of in this field of open banking?
Yeah. There are many use cases. The ones in which we are more active, obviously, is payment use cases. For example, one of the things that open banking is creating as an opportunity is account-to-account payments. So each kind of account-to-account payments, both receivables or outbound payments. Another use case that I believe it has been underestimated for some time, but now it's really showing up its potential, is corporate payments. Corporates wants to pay all over Europe, wants to know their position on their many accounts, instantly. And open banking is now giving them a tool to instantly checking their position on multiple banks and being able to swipe their accounts and to pay instantly. I have to say that these are the use cases that we are working on the most, being a payment company. But I believe that also the credit lending use cases that we were talking about before are very important. They are already a reality around Europe. It's not something very new. There are already many companies that are taking, are using these credit scoring methods. And I would say other use cases, as I told before, is the possibility for a quick check of the identity of the customer. So speeding up the onboarding process. Every time you have to sign a contract or onboard a customer, now you can quickly check that the customer is the one that is really trying to apply. It has a current account, it has certain data, there's certified data. And this, I think, is gold for most of the companies that are onboarding many customers.
So identity and finding out who the customer is very, very quickly is essential for driving this.
Yes,
special,
certifying the identity of the customers and the data of the customer. For example, just by an example, I can have immediately the telephone number of the customer or the email of the customer, which is certified, and avoiding errors, because to type an IBAN code, I always type it triple before getting it right.
Yeah.
So if you can just take it from the open banking API and take it right, that would reduce errors and time.
Interesting. So Dario, when we look into this in the perspective of a bank, what's in it for the open credit benefits here?
For the bank, there is a lot, because as I was mentioning before, they can make more accurate calculation, which is all about to score your potential customer or existing customer. So you need to being capable to correlate the data. So you can gather the PSD2 data on one side, you can use the traditional data you have got already, and you combine them together to increase the time to yes, to increase the accuracy that you've got, to reduce also the risk of assessing this customer. Because the opportunity is to rethink what you're doing in terms of affordability and income estimation if you're talking about individuals, and cash flow if you're talking about companies. So these are the main drivers that haven't changed, but today, thanks to PSD2, you can actually fuel this model with this data, with this insight that is really, really key. It's important also to generate some KPIs that allows you to have that feeling of your customers. So to understand what they're doing and to apply different lending strategies, not just to origination, but also to customer management. So you can think also to upsell and cross-sell, and you can think to target some of your product according to the spending habits, for example, of your customer. So there is a full world of potentialities that I see for the bank, and a lot of advantages in this sense to improve, right? To improve in understanding, in better understanding their customers, and also to go into prospects. Because what I've seen is that the credit lending strategy has changed a little bit since PSD2. Before was very much focused on existing customers and to extract value and profitability from existing customers. Now it's more into prospect. Why you can do that? Because you have access to this data. So you can understand also people and companies that you haven't met before. Maybe some hidden affluence that they don't have a credit history, but they are still profitable and interested to work with you. So this is what I see as a gain for the bank. So the banker should be much interested in understanding and better understanding of banking capabilities.
Thank you. And Gianluca, how could Nexi Group help these banks and corporates to unlock the potential of this open banking concept?
Yeah, Nexi started since the beginning in the open banking arena. We understood immediately that it was something very important for us. The law came in force in 2019 in Europe, in continental Europe, but to be honest, we were already working with the Italian banks in order to get them compliant. So our first steps to help our banks to be compliant with the law. We have gathered 80% of the Italian banks, and we have served them and made them open in the open banking market. Then, as a second step, we did create the possibilities for third-party providers to access open banking. So we built an aggregator machine that is able to access all Italian banks and the most important European banks in order to fulfill and to create the use cases that we were talking about before. And we are providing this to our customer banks that want to play in the open banking. The best. We have we have strategies. We have
source. We have we have to act. We have we have say we have and